Another episode of Bram Radio. What number is this, Zach? Number 9, episode number 9. Today's guest, I want to tell you guys about him first. Really good friend of mine. Very well known in the fight world. This guy, to give you an idea as to kind of what level this guy plays at, during COVID, we were told to not train, but of course, me and rules don't always agree. So we had quite the stable over at the garage of these absolute meat eaters that would come over and help train the junior rank in Bramstead. And the leader of the pack, of course, was our guest today, who would disappear on a Thursday and not be there on Friday. Saturday night, we're watching the fights, and you're actually at Fight Island, which was fantastic. And we're like, wait a minute, what is Ricky doing? And then Tuesday, there you are, back on the mats with us. The youngest in North America to ever get his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt at 19 under Pedro Sauer, and then went on to wrestle D1, which that's a fantastic story in itself. Also a judo black belt, and has trained a lot of the MMA fighters that you may have seen on UFC and some of the other fight promotions that are out there. But I want to welcome my friend, Mr. Ricky Lundell. Thanks for being here, man.
Bram, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited you got this going, and I'm honored to even be asked to.
Dude, I'm so stoked that you're here right now. It's like we were talking, and you're just like, it's been like 2 years since I've done a podcast. I'm like, really?
It's been a while.
2 years since you've done a podcast. It's like right now, podcasts are kind of like Starbucks.
They're popular now.
It's like, I walked down the street, and it's not like, oh man, so how was your trip over? How was your walk over here? It's how many Starbucks did you stop at on your way over here? You know, Starbucks, there are more Starbucks than gas stations.
Nowadays you have to be very selective with the podcast. You jump on who you want to work with, and
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and it's the thing about podcasts is like you have to have a reason to do it. You don't want to just do if you're doing a podcast just so you can listen to yourself bloviate. And I know some of those guys that do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one thing. But if you're trying to get something done, those are the guys I like to align with. You know, they're awesome. Fortunately for me, I'm trying to get something done over here. You know, this thing, Bram Radio podcast. I mean, really here we're here for dudes, because there are so many guys out there that are just struggling right now. You know, they're trying to figure out, they're operating in a position of fear. They are trying to figure out how they're going to get by tomorrow. They're trying to figure out what's happening with the world issues and how it's going to affect their family, their jobs, their relationships, their wife, their kids, and what can they do to better manage maybe their time, their health, their finances, their households, their jobs, their futures. How can I best manage the things that are going on in my head and in my heart so that I can be the best version of myself going forward? That's what this podcast is about. But my reason for having you here is completely selfish.
Well, we'll definitely go through whatever you want to go through. I mean, hopefully I can be a benefit to these guys out there.
I just want to hear stories, man. I want to hear stories. You told me an amazing story once that I would love for you to tell again. And it's how you became a D1 wrestler.
Oh man, how I became a D1 wrestler. Big shout out to my coaches, Sanderson Wrestling.
Yes,
they're the top.
Yeah, Kale
Sanderson, Kyler Sanderson, Cody Sanderson. All of them are incredible. Steve Sanderson, the dad, obviously, and Debbie, his wife. They've really changed the sport of wrestling across the entire nation, and everybody now sees Penn State for what it is. But I was blessed enough to come up in a time before it was Penn State, when it was Iowa State, and how Iowa was really controlling everything in the wrestling world. And the Sandersons came in and they took a new approach to how it was going to be done. They brought in Casey Cunningham and built the dynasty that is today. And before all of that ever happened, going back to your question and aligning myself with with that topic. I was doing jiu-jitsu all the time, and I was with Pedro Sauer, who was legendary. He of course is under Rickson Gracie, who's under Elio Gracie. So that's my lineage.
How young were you when you started jiu-jitsu?
I started in '92 with Pedro Sauer, and I was his sixth student. Me and my brother coming into that, and I was 6 years old at the time. And his daughters, Priscilla and Thaisa, were our training partners. And so we came up right with him. Now, Pedro ended up having 6 daughters, and I was with Pedro the entire time, so I kind of filled in that spot growing up underneath him and seeing his daughters grow up underneath him, but then coming into my teenage years and just moving and grooving.
I'm trying to put it in perspective for how long it is that you've been training. So what was I doing in 1992? I was in Buds.
Wow.
In 1992.
Wow.
I was in SEAL training. That's so for me, so I look at how long I've been doing this game, you know.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not in anymore, but how long I've been affiliated or associated with, you know, whole
31.
How long?
31 years.
Yes. How long you've been training? No. Okay. Well, no wonder. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah.
Similar.
I've tangled with you. I know what a handful you are on the mats and how effortlessly you just run me over. It's pretty. Well,
amazing. It's the moves, not the man. You know, I just try to stick with the moves that work, and that helps.
Yeah, I'll just never forget. He had me in mount, and look literally in mount, and effortlessly is just holding me there, and he's not even using his hands. He's just like on the mat, just posting different. And like, what is he doing? He's not advancing. He's kind of looking over his shoulder. Yeah, the boys were stacking up behind him. And this was when they ambushed me on my birthday.
It was a birthday.
It was a birthday hazing as well.
Obviously, I didn't know what was going on. I was busy.
I was busy rolling. No.
And that ended with a lot of duct tape and laughs and smiles. And we had a good time.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you had a blast. Yeah,
we did. We had a good time. Going back to the wrestling question, my mother. Actually, UVU had just started a wrestling program. I was about 15 at the time. And my mother was like, hey, you know, wrestling and jiu-jitsu, they look like they work together. They look like they're very similar. And there were wrestlers at our gym that were tough, and we were learning some moves here and there, but jiu-jitsu reigned supreme at the time. Like, if you were really looking at it, we're talking 2000, jiu-jitsu and wrestlers, they didn't really get along the way that they are nowadays, how they're talking about it now. And so my mother said, hey, you know, you should go talk to this guy, Cody Sanderson. And he's the coach, and, you know, maybe try to wrestle for him. And I was like, I don't want to do that, you know. I was already not about it. I was already doing jiu-jitsu, and, like, these guys don't know how to do a triangle. What is there to learn?
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was like, you should go check it out. I think you'd like it. So I took my mom's advice, went over to the wrestling coach, and I walked in. I said, hey, hi, I'm Ricky Lundell. I'd be interested in doing some wrestling with you. And if you don't know who Cody Sanderson is now, he's the associate head coach of Penn State University. And over the last 12 years, they've won 10 NCAA titles. It might be 11. I'm not exactly sure.
There's a legacy there.
It's over 10.
Yeah. That's,
you know, and so he's a big deal. And he was at UVU, which was the school I was at, which is Utah Valley University.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I said, hey, I'd like to wrestle for you. And he was like, what are you, like a fighter? And you got to I was 15 at the time. I started college when I was 15. My mom helped me get in, and I tested right into college classes. I decided to slide in there and get to work. And so a 15-year-old kid walks into your wrestling zone and says, hey, you know, I'd like to wrestle. He goes, what are you, like some kind of fighter? I was like, actually, yes. Like, I am some kind of fighter. We do like dojo stomps and Valley Tudo. We like go around and like, we do enjoy fighting. I enjoy that. And that's what we do. And he was like, no, you can't wrestle for me. And I was like, well, can I try out? And he was like, no. And I was like, can I come watch practice or something? He's like, no, you can't. No.
It's a hard no across the board.
Yeah. Across the board, you're out, man. So then I was like, man, that was lame. So I came back to him, asked again. It's like, no. So then I was like, see, Mom, these wrestler dudes, you know? And so then I was like, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder after that. I was like, well, watch this. I'm going to go learn how to wrestle. So I went and found this coach to come and work with me, and I was trading him lessons. I was like, I'm gonna learn how to wrestle. So fast forward 2 or 3 years, we're in 2007, and the World Team Trials has come around, and it was the Grappling World Team Trials under FILA, which is now UWW, and FILA meant it was under the Olympic Committee, and they were going to go, hey, we're going to try to make the Olympics happen for grappling. So jiu-jitsu, sambo, wrestling, whatever it is you do, your job is to tap somebody out. That's your job. And we're gonna bring in the best, and we just want to see who can grapple who the best. And so at that time, all the jiu-jitsu guys were like, man, I'm going to get involved in this. Like the Jeff Glovers got involved. Everybody was involved. Like everybody was involved. And then they decided to quit getting involved when they realized only one person could be a national champion and only one person could be a world champion. And then,
unlike the way jiu-jitsu normally is, there's like...
They heard about that, and they were like, I'm going back to IBJJF.
Yeah. Where it's weight classes, age,
That's right.
Belt levels.
Yeah, and the nationals, when I was in there, like Jeff Monson was on my team, right? Like he's the world team member. And he won Abu Dhabi lots of times. You can see him, if you go back in time, he was the Abu Dhabi champion. Like, so that's just to win the national title. You gotta get through this guy, which is how it works in every country across the board. I mean, we can go into that forever because the more I hear about these world champions that are running around in an open division where I can just sign up, it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
It's like,
I asked you once too. I said, you won some world champions, right? World championships. And you're like, yeah, but let's talk about jiu-jitsu world championships. And as soon as you said that, I was like, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
2007, 2008, that's a world championship. The other ones are opens.
So there could be only one.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. There's five.
It's a reckoning.
5 weight categories. And when you get there, you're going to fight Iran. You're going to fight Russia. You're going to fight countries. Yeah. And so when anybody says, hey, I went to the world championships, you're kind of like, so what countries did you face? Because if you only faced San Diego, LA, and a Brazilian,
yeah,
then you weren't there. That might be a Pan American, maybe, but not really.
Right. Yeah.
So going back, I made it to this championship, and then I progressed through the finals. And at that time, the freestyle world team trials were happening at the exact same time. And so I made it to the finals. And as I was going out for the finals, I'm walking by, and there's Cody Sanderson and Cael Sanderson. And I was like, hey, Cody, how's it going? Like, I don't know if you remember me. And he was like, and we're really close. We're good friends now, phenomenal friends. They've done so much for me in my life. And I said, hey, I'm going to be in the finals in a few minutes if you guys want to stick around and watch it. So they did. They stuck around and watched. I came off, and I just, I'm big fans of theirs. And I just was like, hey, how's it going? I luckily won the event. And they said, hey, do you want to come wrestle at Iowa State? And I was like, yeah, I would like to come wrestle at Iowa State. And for those who don't know, Iowa State it's a legacy program.
Yeah.
That program's been around for 100 years. And it's produced, it's the one that produced Dan Gable. It produced Cael Sanderson, who was undefeated. It's the program that produced a lot. And so that's my story. That's how I got to Iowa State. And I ended up wrestling for a guy who said right off the bat, no, I had no direction on getting there. And then later we became closer than ever. And I probably never would have stepped into wrestling as hard had I not been told no.
Yeah. I met this guy once who was, I won't say his name because I think everybody in the music industry probably knows who he is.
Yeah.
But I asked him once, I said, did you ever pass on an artist that you should have picked up? And he said, yes. One time these guys walked into my office. They said, hey, we want to play our demo tape for you. And so they started playing, and the song they played was a song called Little Runaway. And that band was Bon Jovi. And he said, you guys aren't ready. And they were like, okay. They left. They went down the street and went to like whatever record company that ended up signing them, and they played that for them. They're like, we love it. Yes, sign them now.
Do it.
And I don't know if that's exactly how it went, but the first guy is the guy I asked if he ever passed on somebody.
Yeah.
And he's like, I get asked that question all the time, and it just pains me every time I have to bring it up. But for you to tell that story, it's like Cody, right? Was it Cody? Cody was he said no, but he got another shot.
We got together.
Yeah. He got another shot.
Which I truly think it's divine.
100%.
How it came back together.
Yeah.
Nobody else could have coached me the same way.
Yeah. Since then, so you have kind of risen in the fight world. You've done some pretty awesome stuff, and some of the people that you've trained, like you've trained Frank Mir, Carlos, right?
Yeah, Carlos Condit.
And who's that? The young lady that you coached, and she beat Amanda Nunez. We watched that fight together. You and I did in Coronado.
Yeah. So I was on Tough 17 and 18 with Jones, and then Misha Tate, and that was Juliana Pena.
Yeah.
She was one of our athletes on the Ultimate Fighter, and I've been really blessed to coach a lot of these people.
Yeah.
And what really happened there was there's still a huge crossover gap between jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and even a lot of people are trying to branch into judo and talk about judo right now, but I think they really should stick with wrestling a little bit longer. It's only been a couple of years that they've realized that they need to step in there. But there was a massive gap in the connection of those areas, and there still is. Like the guys that I see online that are the predominant experts, they're missing a lot right now on how it works and how it all ties together. But you see, as you stepped in, nobody knew how to do it, and I just kind of fell into the right spot. And then people who saw that, they wanted to get involved and go, man, how do I connect my jiu-jitsu to my wrestling as seamlessly as possible?
Mm.
And that's how I slid into that spot with the UFC.
Because I asked you once too, I was like, did you ever consider being a UFC fighter? And you're like, yeah, but the answer was no. You know, the way you described and told the story, I mean, I think that the way it has worked out for you couldn't have worked out any better. But do you ever go back and think of like, I think I could have done. I think I could have a belt right now if I did. Do you ever think about that stuff?
You know, you never know unless you step in there and do it that way. But I do believe that I could have fared well in there. But I was really meant to coach at that level, and really meant to push athletes to another spot. And I think I knew that once I won my world titles, then I was pretty fulfilled in that spot.
Yeah, you're kind of in that nothing to prove lane.
Yeah, there's nothing more right there, and helping others on their journey. I mean, you come to find out, like, the more that you get involved and you're doing stuff, the more that you help others on their journey, it fulfills you a lot more than just fighting for your own journey, which is what I would tell any man out there getting after it, like trying to figure out what to do. It's like, man, just take what you know, start coaching people, and before you know it, you get a lot better. When you give, you receive, and you'll get farther whatever you're doing by giving.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of people watching this podcast that have always thought, like, I would like to really get into Zach, and I always talk about that because I always tell Zach, I'm like, because that dude is an athlete.
Is he
like,
an athlete?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
He was look at his rocking his intentional dad bod right now, but he was a circus performer. You guys, he was juggling, like his spatial awareness off the charts. Like, I mean, is gymnastics and acrobatics, and he's at Acrozac for a reason. You know,
right?
Guys like that excel so fast because they don't have to really think about what their body is doing. They can just do it. You know, they pick things up so fast. I'm always telling them, like, dude, you need to get on the mats, dude. You would be phenomenal.
It's so good. It's so good for the mind, and it's so good for the body, and it develops the warrior spirit. It's something you can keep with you no matter what age you are. You can start it at any age, and you can keep it with you your whole life, and that's a special thing.
Yeah, unlike like a Usain Bolt. There's going to come a day where he will not be able to sprint. Helio Gracie, he was on the mats like his entire life. You know?
And there's a social aspect that you always get to keep.
Yeah.
But there's some intangibles inside of jiu-jitsu and wrestling that are different than anything else. When two warriors come together and they start facing each other and they start connecting, you have an energetic exchange that can't be seen, but it is happening. Same way if you take 5 people, stick them in a room at a table, and they start to communicate back and forth, emotionally, everybody kind of finds a homeostasis together. And when they find that homeostasis, they can communicate with emotional intelligence back and forth to one another. And they're all downloading that information at the exact same time. As we're all sitting here, like our bodies are crazy antennas and we're downloading a crazy amount of information from one another. And it gets even more when you take a really healthy warrior. Same thing with a toxic warrior. But you take a really healthy warrior and you bring him in, somebody else who hasn't learned yet, and they connect with that person and they start touching and pushing and pulling, and they start downloading information from one another very quickly, and they start to find a homeostasis. Then they branch off and go find another warrior, and they start finding homeostasis. And before you know it, that person that you met that has never trained before, they're changing very quickly inside of the mat room. And that's something that you just don't get in other areas. Me and my wife, we were speaking with Rodney Mullen, who's top world skateboarder. If you look him up, he has incredible TED Talks, incredible discussions. This guy is a stud across the board. And we were discussing what flow state is like on a skateboard. And he asked me, well, what's it like in jiu-jitsu and wrestling? What does that feel like? And I was explaining the energetic exchange. And he said, what we get in ours is very different. And it made me want to look at skateboarding, but he said we don't get that energetic exchange between warriors. Like, you don't get that connection.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
I was talking with, I think it was Morgan. Morgan and I were talking about it, amazing dude.
Amazing man. Yeah. Morgan Walker. We
were talking, having a conversation about, and it's like with him, it's like his brain is so big, so it's like you got to pick your topics with him, because when he gets going, you're gonna be on your toes to keep up with his conversation.
Yeah, know what you're talking about.
Yeah, know what you're talking about with him, or he's gonna know it and he's gonna call you out. That's just how Morgan rolls. But we're having a conversation about jiu-jitsu, and this is probably, I'd say 6 years ago when I first started training. And he said, when you get on the mats, you gotta be careful who you train with.
Yes.
And he's like, he goes, it's okay to say no to training with certain people. He's like, if they're coming towards you and they're saying, hey, let's train, but there is just something about them, and you're getting the to quote my buddy Jericho, he's like, I got the body nose. He gets us out skydiving. He goes, they're coming towards you, and there's something about them that doesn't seem right. He's like, as someone in training, just starting, he's like, it's okay to say no. He's like, you don't have to say yes to every single match. He goes, because some guys are out there and they'll have bad intentions. They aren't in here in a healthy state of mind. So when you said that there is this constant exchange, I completely get that. Now, I've never had that experience.
You will. You've been having it.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about, I didn't have that experience as a white belt where I had to say no to somebody because I was around such amazing dudes.
Yeah, it helps. You had quite the team.
Yeah,
you did. You had quite the team.
Yeah, Craig Baker, morning crew.
Craig Baker is a phenomenal coach.
Guy's awesome.
Phenomenal man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get those guys, the Craigs, the Jimmies, the Walkers. I mean, we had Marin. We had a lot of
Alex Marin, yeah.
A lot of talented men around there.
Yep.
Helping develop. And when you're working at that level, you're getting an energetic exchange with those guys.
Yes.
And going back to the saying no, I think that is very important, because if we had 10 really healthy warriors in a room, and then we brought in one guy who was really struggling in life, he's having all kinds of problems. Could be anything going on in his life, and it really comes down to like a kind of a spiritual off balance. When he comes in and he rolls with you first, there's an energetic exchange that takes place. You guys are working. He's feeling what pushing and pulling feels like and angles feel like, but he also feels what's fair and safe aggression, when to pull off. All of these things are occurring in microseconds.
Yep.
And when you two stop, there'll be a homeostasis, and you're able to go grab another healthy warrior and heal up real quick, like very fast. And he goes on to somebody else and he gets an energetic exchange, and it happens quick. And before you know it, he's getting really healthy really fast. Now, if you flip-flop that and you're a healthy warrior and you walk into a space of guys that aren't doing so well, there's 7 of them versus 2 healthy warriors that walk in. You're now losing energy to each one of these guys. And it's not necessarily physical where they were trying to hurt you, but you have to recover later on an emotional level, on a spiritual level. And it's not in your best interest to be in spaces that do that. So if you have toxic training partners, you do have to separate yourself and say no.
Yeah.
But it is going on. It's just not being talked about enough.
Right.
It is happening.
Do you remember Junior?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dude's a killer, right?
Killer. Leg lock man.
And his stand-up game is
scary.
Is insanely good. And that's like, I don't know how I was like, dude, you should have been a fighter. You would have been really good at it. But he and I were talking about something similar to that as well. Like Morgan said, you don't have to say yes to everybody. There's going to be somebody at some point where you're going to be like, I'm not feeling this, man. I just don't want to. That probably didn't happen for me ever. Like I've just always
well, you're a people person. You mold with. I see you mold with so many people.
I can just. I mean that, and I'm not really afraid of anything that somebody's gonna hurt me or injure me. Cool. I'll just stop.
Right.
Like I'm not here to get hurt. I'm here to learn. Right.
Right.
And that's the part that Junior said. Junior was just like, yeah, because he and I were talking about what Morgan had said, and he just said, you don't have to. You can do it around. You just tap quick. He goes, you don't have to sit there and get injured either.
That's right.
And he said that because I held on to stuff a little bit too long, and I was going a little long before tapping, and he was just like, you can tap and it's not going to hurt as bad.
You can let it go. Yeah,
just like fantastic.
Tap often. Yeah, tap early.
Yeah, because you're
trained forever.
You're 50 soon. Why don't you go ahead and preserve your joints?
Yeah,
you just give me a hard time about it. But when you're talking about that energy exchange, that reminds me of when men are alone and they don't have an outlet, and then they end up in a place where it's dark and then they find something. They find jiu-jitsu. They find a sport. Pick a sport, any sport, and then they're around those people, those kind of people. Now, different sports are gonna have different types of things, but there's something about when it's like the first time I locked up with you. The first time it's like I was like, oh man, this is gonna be terrible. It's like I could just feel it, that power and that energy that's coming off of them. It is so awesome when you have that type of exchange with awesome dudes and healthy people and especially people that you love, that you would die for. Mm-hmm. There's something about that because there's not a lot of guys out there that are finding those types of outlets for what they're doing. You were mentioning something. You were talking about something that I want to bring up, that you're more interested in the man than you are the ability.
Absolutely.
Of the man.
Absolutely.
Like the ability can happen. I'm more interested in the man. What are you bringing on the mats today? And that's something that I see in where I train quite a bit. It's like you're rolling with somebody. This would always happen when I'm rolling with Jimmy May. Is I could always know where his head's at. If his head's not in the game, I can tell. I'm like,
100%.
You okay? What's going on in your life? And he'll tell you. It's like, because we're boys. It's like, rolling with you, and you know it, so you're gonna know right away if something's not on my game because you know how I trained. And you would say, "What's going on, man? Where are you at? Because you're not here. Where are you at? Talk to me." There's so many hard conversations that have happened on the mats, and these are the quality men, quality humans.
Oh yeah.
But then you get the new guy that comes on the mats, and this happened to me, I don't know how many times, where I've just said, "Buddy, you okay?" And I'm talking to a broken man whose wife just left him. Maybe he has a young child that just has some health conditions or something happened with him. I mean, all these variants of things that I've heard on the mats, and he's getting a chance to talk about it. And I said, "Dude, hey, let's go to the other mat. Let's go across the hall." And we go sit down in the middle of the mat, some dude I don't even know, and he is spilling his guts to me. And I get to sit there and I'll just listen. And there was this one guy that did that once, and I just said, "Hey man, can I pray for you?"
Yeah.
And he was like a dry sponge. If I drop a dry sponge on here, it'll bounce, and but he was like a dry sponge, and I took a medicine dropper and put a drop of water in it, and he was just like, yes. He was an absolute smashed up, broken man. And he said, and he was a believer. And he said, I honestly think that because I wasn't going to come and train today. Today is my third day on the mats. It was my first time meeting him. I'd seen him there before, but this was my first time seeing, like, actually talking to him. So when you said that earlier, I started thinking about all those times that I had to be able to, and my thing is coaching. I love to coach people through life stuff. So when you said that earlier, I want you to run that back and say that again as much best you can, because it was awesome.
Yeah, I'll try to get there. I think what happens when these men come on the mat and they start to expose who they are, and you start to peel back that onion. When you start to go against somebody like that, they're already ready to, like, see where they're at. How do I mix up against Bram right now? And then you start to crack through and find the truth of who he really is in this moment. And that could be, you're trying to pass his guard and he decides to lay back and retreat in that position. You're finding him right now. And then you start to come around and he tries to reach over, get a Kimura, and when he loses it, he starts to tuck in, or maybe he extends out. Whatever those are all behaviors of his actual personality and his attitude and where he is right now in the moment. And you're finding that through this downloaded communication as you're moving with him. And so when he all of a sudden, you crack through those zones and you find him and you maybe submit him or control him, whatever you do, and he turns to you and he goes, "Man, I'm having a hard time." That's because you found the truth. Like, you got in there and you found who he really is rather than who maybe he wanted you to see, or what those things occur like. And earlier off camera, when we were discussing, what I'm looking for in an athlete, or what I'm looking for in a training partner, I'm really looking for somebody who's developing, and they don't have to have it all together, but I'm looking for a man with character. I'm looking for a man who he's got his life moving and he's putting it together. If it's not all the way together, he's working on putting it together. He's trying to get 1% better every day, and that's what he's doing. And when you find that, it's really easy to teach somebody.
Yeah.
Like, so many guys are looking for a man that he's super talented. You see how slick he is at, like, spinning into the leg locks and spinning into the arm locks and coming around and getting the back. And then, meanwhile, I saw that guy like 5 minutes ago outside drop a wrapper out of his car and not pick it up and throw it in the trash. He saw it, he knew what happened, and he didn't do it. What does that say about that man? When I put him under pressure, is he lazy? Does he not care about other things? He caused something to happen, and he's not taking any accountability, even though it's just a wrapper, it's a small level. But when we get down to it, he has something missing. So when we get to the championship, he's not going to have it. It's not that I'm looking for him to do something right. It's just I know he's a shortcut guy. I know he's lazy. I know he won't do it. And you're looking for guys that they might not have it all together, but hey, man, you pick up that wrapper and they start doing it. And they go the long way and they go the hard way. And when people do that and their character's in line, the moves are easy. It comes really easy. You should be looking for guys who are strong family men, guys who who care. They're trying to do something better in the world, trying to develop other things. That guy, I can teach him really fast. Technique is like, that's not even a problem.
Right.
That's the easiest part. But these other guys that they're taking the shortcuts and then they want to be the man, it's sad to watch it keep happening, but they're just kidding themselves. Because all of these things, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, judo, all of these things, they're just a way to develop the man. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. Progress over perfection. Because perfection is nearly impossible to attain. But progress, the 1% better. You said 1% better. I believe that's the truest form of progress. But that is something I've seen on a lot of your merch, by the way. Like, for those of you that don't know, Mr. Lundell has his own line of merch that's 1% better every day.
Yes.
I saw Alex wearing it. Alex Marion wear it the other day. And I've seen some of the other kids that you've trained and stuff on your social media. I've seen some of those guys wearing some of your merch. It's awesome. And it speaks to exactly what you just said.
Yeah, it's just a message to get out there and let people know how to be consistent and how to get better. You know,
now you came to that through powerlifting, though, right?
Yeah, I was doing Olympic lifting, which is snatch and clean.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like 29 years old, and I walked into this guy. His name is John Bros. He made Olympic lifters. I mean, he has had several Olympians and so many Pan American champions, and the guy's unbelievable. And you can look him up. His gym was called Average Bros, like Average Joe's gym, right?
Yeah.
So I showed up to this gym, and I was like, hey, I'd like to lift weights. I'd like to get stronger. He's like, what are you squatting right now? And I was like 275 for 3. I was like 155 pounds. And that was really all I had needed. And he was like,
where was this in your jiu-jitsu journey?
Way after. I was 29 years old here. So it was post D1, post. I'd been with the UFC for like a decade at this point, doing like helping develop fighters, trying to develop international fighters. So I talked to this guy and I said, I want to lift a lot of weight. And he said, well, give me a number. Like, what do you want to lift? And so I decided to throw out, a ridiculous number for myself. I said, well, like 500 pounds. I'd like to squat 500 to the bottom and all the way up. And he's like, you better make a bigger goal than that, dude. And I was like, I like this guy, man. I like this guy right here. So I was like, well, I'll be here tomorrow. Let's rock and roll. So he basically said, listen, you need to squat all the time. And I was like, what is all the time? Like a couple times a week, he's like, no, like 2 times a day, once a day, every day, but do it. And so then I was like, man, okay, well, 500 pounds, 500 days, 1% better every day. That's how I'm going to get it done. I'm going to just squat every day for 500 days. And I wrote a book on it to explain the journey. It's like a rudimentary understanding of like squatting and like what can happen there and like what happens to you if you squat every single day, and the mind, body, spirit that has to grow, because your body can't do it, but you have to squat to max, meaning you're going to go until the bar drops off your back every day. And then you're going to do your sets after that. So John Bros was like, yeah, you're going to do it. Like, that's how it's going to go. And in between all that, I was still doing jiu-jitsu, wrestling, training guys, traveling. And by the end of that thing, for 2 weeks straight, I was doing over 600 pounds.
Wow.
On my squat.
Nice.
And so you talk to all these people talking about periodization and how that works. But if you do something every day, like you pick up your child every day and he starts to get bigger, before you know it, even in the beginning, it was really heavy, but later it's not. And that 600 pounds, eventually it wasn't very heavy. And 500 was like, you're still in warm-up sets.
Yeah.
And I learned that through John Bros, but I had already understood it through combat sports. And I think you can apply it to anything in any space. And I think where people really mess up is you see it all the time with a runner. Like a guy or girl, they're overweight, they're having a hard time. They go, man, that's it. I'm sick of being this way. I'm going to change. They go outside, they get their running stuff on, they go buy all the gear, like everything. They got their backpack with the water coming out, and they're like, I'm going to get in shape. And they go on a run, and they go, I'm going to do what I did in high school. Now they run, and then they can't move. You get shin splints. There's problems. They got plantar fasciitis. You can't get this guy moving anymore. And then he's like, I can't do it anymore. Well, what happened is instead of doing 1%, he went for like 2 to 100, whatever that number was. But at that 1% margin, if you stay in there and just get a little better, you can do it. Like, hey, dude, today, why don't you just walk to the mailbox and then go back in? And then tomorrow, why don't you walk to the mailbox and then the neighbor's house and then just go back in? Before you know it, you'll be going really far. Yeah. And that's where I think most failure really occurs.
Right. So your philosophy on coaching is the same way. I know that the times that you and I, this is just, when was the last time I saw you? I think it was on the mats 3 months ago.
Sounds right.
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
And maybe more. I think it might have been longer. I don't know, man. I'm such a bad judge of time. But anyway, we did a round. We just flowing.
Yeah.
And I just said, well, what are we gonna do today? I have you. I definitely want to learn something, and we just worked on something that was so simple, so foundational. I don't even know if I remember what it was, but it was like the somebody square, the like turning them to a quarter,
yes,
as far as you can, but you want to get them to a quarter and then push them. They're going to give you that lead leg.
How to flank, yeah, flanking a person,
and it was. I cannot tell you. I use that. I use it every day. I'm on the every time I'm standing up.
Isn't it so nice?
I'm going to use it. So every time, and then I always think every time I have my go-tos, the things that you just do without even really thinking about. But everything that I have in my arsenal has a foundation that's attached to a relationship. Mm-hmm. It's attached to a friend of mine or somebody who took the time to teach me something.
Yes.
So there's
almost nostalgia to it.
It is. So everything that I do, except for the north-south joke, I happened on that one by myself on accident, and it just happens to be my favorite sub.
But it's yours. Yeah.
It's mine, and I have. But then along the line, people, I actually asked someone, I asked Morgan, I'm like, is that a thing? He goes, yeah, it's called north-south joke. It's a thing, dude.
You're like, so well, good. It's my thing too.
Can you show me how to do it? And he did. So now I think about Morgan every time that happens. And so all these different aspects of my game are attached to people, they're attached to relationships.
Yes.
And they're all such fond memories. And even finding jiu-jitsu is just, I just knew I had to do something after I had this big, massive liver surgery. I go to the gym.
This is a crazy story.
Boxing.
Amazing story.
Oh, how I found jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
And I went through 3 months of nothing. I couldn't even move. I couldn't pick up anything heavier than 10 pounds for 3 months. Day one, back. I'm in there. I'm just like,
just throwing hands.
Just getting it as fast as hard as I can. And I was so tired. I'm mouth breathing. I'm holding the water fountain up, basically just inhaling as much water as I can. And we talked about this. I hate drinking water. Yeah. I have to drink something besides water. Water has to have something like lemon in it or something.
It had your sweat and a penny taste from your lungs.
And all of a sudden, Jimmy May's coming down the stairs, and he was like, "Hey, dude, what's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's like, "What are you doing? You look terrible. Are you okay?" I was like, "I just boxing." He says, "Gloves." Somebody. And he was like, "Whatever, man. Hey, the men train upstairs." And he just walked off. I'm like, well, I guess that's a gauntlet that just hit the ground.
I will see you upstairs.
I'm going to be there every morning. The next day, I'm waiting at 6 a.m. for the gym to open. Because I'm not only do I have to do this, but I got to be there before him.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to leave after him. Like, I have to one-up him all the time. That's how it is with the boys, right? You're always like, kind of like just that.
We're checking where we're at. Yeah, we're pinging.
And I got up there. I'm wearing a pair of gym shorts, and I got a regular T-shirt on, and it's been go time ever since. From the moment I stepped foot on the mats, I'm like, this is where I need to be. This is where I need to be every day.
Big time.
And it has absolutely changed the way I look at a lot of different things.
What do you think developed you the very most inside of the art? I mean, you started at a great spot. You were with great guys. But what development do you think you found post doing all of the stuff that you've done in your life?
Mm-hmm.
What developed you in that zone?
You mean like develop me personally or develop my game?
Both. Personally, for sure.
I think the biggest thing that I experienced is just develop like personally, like is that I learned that you have to budget. There is a budgetary system that you have to implement with your life. You have to manage your time. You have to manage your energy. You have to manage your relationships. You have to budget everything. Like that budget meaning give close attention to. So in the teams we have this thing. It's like it's a attention to detail. It's the little things that are going to kill you. So let's pay attention to the little things as well as the big things. So I think that for me, it's just budgeting and paying attention to how I do, right? How I'm doing whatever it is that I'm doing. I can let's see, use Kimura. So, by the way, thanks for that.
Of course.
Inside joke. But I can catch a Kimura. I can catch it, and I can be lazy about it. The guy's gonna get his arm back. The guy's he's gonna turn. He's gonna because I didn't properly lock him down. I didn't set him in one spot and put him in cement before I went and do the move. Right? I didn't do those things because, like you saying earlier, it's like just being lazy. Right?
Yes.
That has flown for me. There is no more lazy. It is if you're gonna do something, you have to commit to it.
There's an intention.
Yep. If it's worth fighting for, it better be worth dying for. If you're going to commit to a move, if you're going to commit to an action, you commit, and there is no going back. So the Bible says it this way: it says, "Let your yes be your yes and your no be your no." I struggled with that for a long time, and there was something about jiu-jitsu that made it so it was tangible for me to see that, because if you are wishy-washy on the mats, you are going to get your ass run over.
It's going to be a problem.
It's going to be a bad one. So for me, it was about I had to learn how to commit to things, really commit. Here, at the business that I own here, it's the same thing. It's like there are certain things I have to commit to, and I have got to go full bore on, and because you can't do it halfway. And so that has been the big thing for me. And I think as far as my game goes, the thing that it's kind of along the same lines, but I think that it's more about the relationships in the game for me.
Yes.
If I had to go to another gym and do jiu-jitsu there, I'm not sure. For me, it's more about the clowns and the circus, to use a Zachism. Right? Zach's a great clown. He's a great clown. For me, it's more about the clowns and the circus. That's how I think about the SEAL teams as well.
The connection.
I love the men. I just love those guys, especially the ones that are I'm super tight with. But the actual institution of it all, I mean, I don't know. I was an E-nothing, but I have my opinions, right?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
If I went to another gym to train, another place away from my guys, outside of the familiar, outside of the mats that I grew up on, outside of training with you, and like hey, you can't train with Ricky, you can't train with Craig, you can't train with Morgan Jr., Jimmy, you can't train with the Wolfpack boys, you can't do any of that stuff. You got to go over there and you got to train with that stuff. It's going to take me a minute, because it's going to pull a lot of energy out of me to go and commit to go do it. But that's where I have to draw that commitment to go and do that thing, because maybe it's something that happened that I have no control over, but I still know that I need jiu-jitsu.
Right.
It's not like I'm going to be without relationships now because these have left me. It means that I have to commit to forming new relationships.
Absolutely.
And paying attention to what's going on around me, but my motivation's not going to be there. So I have to act outside and above my motivation to be able to get there so that I can be who I need to be for who I need to be it for. And it may be somebody I don't even know yet that's on that mat, and they might be a very high level black belt jiu-jitsu player, but me, little junior me, with some small belt on with limited knowledge, goes onto a mat. I'm bringing something to the table that he may benefit from, that I have to bring with conviction, with everything that I have. Otherwise, I'm doing him a disservice.
Yeah, and it is all relationships when you show up to that.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking earlier, and you said you asked something that was very important, like, what if you'd never trained before, what would you do? Or like these men that don't know what to do, how to go train.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest part is that first part where you were at the drinking fountain.
Mm-hmm.
You have your arms around it, it hurts, like you are going to puke, it's going to happen, but it's going to feel good. Like you got to let go a little bit and just walk in. And if you do that, you're going to find people, and then you got to do what anybody does when you enter a room: shake hands with everybody, say hello, just be super respectful. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I came in, this is my first day.
Yeah.
This is my second day. Be honest. Don't be that guy who trained 4 years and then say it's your first day or something, and then
Right.
jump in toe folds. They're gonna not like you.
Right.
But you come in, you build relationships, and before you know it, that's your new wolf pack. Like, it will happen. And there's one thing that me and my wife, we talk about this all the time, and there's just good people everywhere. Despite what you see online or on the news or in these different spots, go outside for a second, meet somebody, and you'll see there are good people everywhere. Good people on all mats, good people in all spaces. And when you open your heart up and you start trusting these people, it gets easy to find. It's easy to find them. Just know that not everybody is, when you show up there, they're not all built. That's why they're there. Mm-hmm. They're all working on it, like you. That's why you're there. Right. That's why I'm there.
What do you say about, so here's females training.
Yeah.
Right? And this is an interesting one. I think that all women should have the basics and foundations on how to get out from underneath somebody. That's, to me, one of the most important things.
I think everybody should have that one.
100%. But there's for me to, like, I was watching you with one of the girls at the gym. She's older, and watching you roll with her, I was like, that is the true mark of somebody who has really in doing well in this art, is because he can move around with somebody who's 50 pounds lighter than him. Let her work. It was move, escape, position, and then it was a position, submission, then escape, position, submission, escape. I mean, it was like this awesome, and she just fell right into it. And you guys were doing this awesome, this awesome sequence, and it looked like it was planned. And we got done, and I talked to her after that. I'm like, how was that? And she said, that was probably the most incredible round. I was doing things that I didn't even know I knew how to do.
Yes.
And I said, that's Ricky for you. He will bring that out. And she's like, I didn't want that. I didn't want that round to end.
Well, what you're trying to do anytime you're getting with somebody is you're negotiating. That's what's happening there.
Yeah.
So, like, if I take your wrist, that's the beginning of my negotiation. Mm-hmm. And then you will do something, and I will accept or call it off. And we could reset, or we could move farther down that path. And the more we negotiate, the more you get to know them.
Yeah.
And then if you're doing it well, you can get them to learn more about themselves than the negotiation going on. You give them opportunities to develop, and then keep giving them that opportunity. And every time they miss it, make sure to try to be patient, sit there for long enough to try to show them, and then move on to something that was dangerous, something that they didn't like. And then you refine that opportunity again, and they go, man, last time I was in there, I didn't like what happened. I'm going to try something different. And then you let them have success with it, and then you negotiate from there. If you do that enough times, man, people get good really fast. In 5 minutes, you can teach them more than they might learn in a year going to just a class.
Yeah. Question for you. How can people find you? Where are you at?
I'm on Instagram. You can hit me up there, Ricky Lundell, at Ricky Lundell. That's really the easiest way to get me.
Yeah, we're going to have a page on you on bramradiopodcast.com. Everybody gets their own page. You made it. You got your own page on Bram Radio.
That's what's up.
So so we'll be adding links on how people can contact you, how they can find you. 1% Better Every Day.
That's right.
The book.
Yep.
I might hit you up and see if we can put that in our merch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we'll try to get some books. You guys got to check out that book. It will revolutionize the way that you look at the way that you are growing as a human, the way you're advancing as an athlete. It's got all the makings and all the fixes for everything that you would need for that. You need to pick up that book. You have apparel as well. You have
I do. You'll find it online.
Yeah, find it online. Cool. And then Instagram. What's your website?
Don't have one.
Don't have one.
Don't have one.
Okay. Well, you have a page. It's on Bram Radio Podcast.
That's right. All right. I try to stay a little less techie, so I need a tech master.
Yeah. That's what I have these guys for. They're my nerds because me by myself.
Otherwise, no go.
No, I sit down and then do this, and then I go back to my office, and then I just leave it to Zach and Sam to let them sort all the.
They get it done.
Yeah. Yep. So, anyway, Ricky, I have had a blast with you. Thank you for coming and hanging out.
I can't tell you how honored I am to be on this show. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time and just speaking with me and going through.
Dude, I'm less honored. I think that where you are going and the things that you're going to be up to, things that you're going to be doing, especially here coming up, because I know that off camera we have talked a little bit, but I think that God's got great stuff for you, and I'm stoked for it. So
thank you, bro.
All right, man. Bram Radio. Stay dangerous.